Peace and blessings be upon you. Welcome to these blessed, wonderful days in this blessed month that Allah the Almighty has honored us in Ramadan. We continue our discussion in the gracefulness of Rawda al-Sharifa and what had occurred in it of glorious events. Events we learned different sides of that pure biography. And we see how the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught his companions. Then we get closer to the hadith that he taught them, which were narrated by the companions. May Allah bless them. As we said, that Al-Bukhari and Muslim are the most honest books collected of the Prophet's hadith, peace be upon him. Those men who served the hadith and took from men's trust and returned to many of the references until they gathered this book that we need to go back between one time and another to hear the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, or to read this hadith, or to sit with an expert from the experts to narrate the hadith to us. And in this episode, we discuss one hadith from the hadith that occurred in Al-Rawda al-Sharifa, and the first hadith in Sahih Bukhari. Narrated Umar bin al-Khattab, I heard Allah's Prophet, peace be upon him, say, the reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. So whoever emigrated from worldly benefits, or for a woman to marry, his emigration was for what he emigrated for. Narrated Al-Bukhari and Muslim. What does that mean? When we stop at hadith and we see that it is the first hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, we learn that the case is the rewards of deeds depends upon the intentions, meaning that the intent is a basic case in each direction and in every act of worship, and it is a basic part of the worships. Therefore, and in this hadith came to teach us that the Prophet, peace be upon him, taught his companions, and the hadith was narrated by a companion and the Caliph. He is Umar bin al-Khattab, and that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, the reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. And as we said before, the reward of deed depends. That means, if a person came to a certain action because Allah is pleasant and does not love but being pleasant, and Allah the Almighty does not accept menacing, and Allah does not need any partners, and does not accept polytheism, and does not accept to be shared with anybody, not believing in Allah, nor even in the worship, not even in the intentions, not even in the work. So if you plan to do something specific, it must be to Allah the Almighty. The reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. The companions, may Allah bless them, learned the hadith and realized that this direction had ordered and taught them that Allah is richer than them and us, and more than everything that is on earth. Allah the Almighty does not benefit from the worship and is not hurt by the sin And Allah warned us. In Hadith al-Qudsi, O my servants, were the first of you and the last of you, the human of you and the jinn of you, to be as wicked as the most wicked heart of any one man of you, that would not decrease my kingdom in anything. O my servants, were the first of you and the last of you, the human of you and the jinn of you, to rise up in one place and make a request of me. And were I to give everyone what he requested, that would not decrease what I have any more than a needle decreases the sea if put into it. Meaning that the Hadith explained clearly that Allah the Almighty is warning us that He is the richest. But at the same time, we come to an important point, which is that Allah the Almighty wants His servants to follow Him sincerely and honestly. That Allah the Almighty decided that this world with everything in it does not benefit Him by anything and does not hurt Him by anything, but warned us to an important issue. And I created not the jinn and mankind except they should worship me. Meaning that all our worships, even if we think it is impermanent, but it is, worship in every way. Even when I work in my business, I feel that I am worshiping Allah. When I fear Allah in my business, or my work, or in what I make or plant, all these things teach us that Allah the Almighty and I created not the jinn and mankind except that they should worship me. This issue shows that whoever goes to work is going to a goal. He must have good intentions, or his work will not be taken. Why? Because Allah is good, and only love who is good. And that is why we come to many issues, such as fasting. The Hadith comes to explain that a human can fast and not benefit from it except hunger and thirst, and maybe stays awake at night to pray, does not benefit from it except for staying up late and getting tired. Why? Because his intentions were not clear. And so the Hadith that was narrated by noble Omar bin Khattab here warns us about the dangers of intentions and the importance of good intentions. And if you do it for Allah the Almighty, the reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. So if your intentions were good, then Allah will bless this work. If it was other than that, the work is refused. Here, we come to an important issue. In a hadith like this we read, meaning, whoever emigrated for Allah and His Prophet, so his immigration is for Allah and His Prophet. He did that, begging Allah the Almighty with that, the Prophet, peace be upon him, and to follow this guidance. Because Allah taught us from the top of the 7 skies that if we love Allah, we must follow the guidance of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We approach to this love and we come to this following. The reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. So whoever emigrated from worldly benefits or for a woman to marry, his emigration was for what he emigrated for, meaning that his intentions were not to Allah the Almighty. And he was not faithful in his intentions, but this turning to Allah, even in wanting to get married and to guard himself, and his wanting to obey Allah and His Messenger, and so Allah the Almighty will be pleased with him. because he wanted to follow the guidance of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who ordered us in this matter, and he urged us and requested us, called upon the parents. If you were approached by an honest young man for marriage, bless them when they let him marry their daughter. Their intentions are to follow the guidance of the Prophet, peace be upon him. O young people, the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, whoever amongst you can marry should marry. So if I, as a young man, and I wanted a wife and a married life, but I also want guard myself. So Allah bless every intention. As people say, the intention is the issue that leads you to the person's own good, by making all the issues for the sake of Allah the Almighty, smaller or larger. And this hadith warns us, the reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, or the reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. To see that, there are important hadiths, meaning that on Judgment Day, men come with deeds work like mountains. Then they come and stand then. See Allah the Almighty's orders. Angels to put him in hell. He says, my Lord, I am your slave. I worship you. I believed. I provided. I worked. I did. He says, my Lord, I am your slave. I spent. Then the answer comes. You were spending so that the people would call you generous. Not for me. Put him in hell. Meaning that bad intentions ruined all his work, and all his work was lost. Here comes an important point. The reward of deeds depends upon the intentions. Be faithful with your work in honest intention for the sake of Allah the Almighty. Men come on Judgment Day, are great scholars, and had learned and enlightened and studied and wrote. Then they come on Judgment Day. Then Allah the Almighty said, bring my servant. So he said, my Lord, I am your servant. I learned and taught much of the science and Quran and Hadith. My Lord, put my servant, says the Almighty, put him in hell. He says, you learn to be called a scientist and not with intentions for me. Look at this moment, at the servant who had lost himself and became empty-handed for not being faithful in his intentions. And this hadith shows the dangers of intentions, and that the person must be honest, heading to Allah who had nothing hidden from him. So when he moves in this path, he moves as a weak servant that wants to be pleased by accepting this work. That accepting occurs with good intentions. The reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. So this action or movement, Allah will save you with it, and Allah the Almighty will accept it from you and be happy with him. But there was a man carrying his sword and fought and was wounded when he died, and they mentioned him to the Prophet, peace be upon him. He said that the man will be in hell with the knowledge of Allah, knowing that from what Allah had taught him, peace be upon him. When they went to see him, after he felt so tired, he committed suicide and died as a non-Muslim. So, intention in this case is something very important in our work. Intention is in our prayer. Intention is in our fast. Intention in a human wanting to roam the holy Kaaba and wants to pray, if he makes it fully to Allah the Almighty, does not make the falseness and does not make the reputation. He wants to give money to the poor. The best things is not to let your right hand know what your left hand did and spent. And it is not a pride to spend. No. Because this is Allah the Almighty's money. And you are entrusted with it. So if you move with complete intentions, Allah will reward you with Him. And if you move wanting a reputation and having an intention for that, then it is not a good intention. The reward of deeds depends upon the intention, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. Here, the intention of immigrant to Allah and His Messenger, but if the act was not to Allah and to His Messenger, then you do not get rewarded, but you will get punished for that. Bad intentions because you disbelieved in Allah, and disbelieving is not worshipping someone else with Allah, but to disbelieve in Him, the Almighty, in your actions, and to do it not for the sake of Allah the Almighty. True intentions, true manner to Allah the Almighty. So if you raise your hand, and your intentions was ahead of you, and you say, Ya Rab, especially if you raise them as pure and clean, not with pride, does not have ill-gotten, does not have stealing, does not have embezzlement. But if you raise them dirty, it would come back to you. His eating is ill-gotten, his drinking is ill-gotten, his bed is ill-gotten. It will not be accepted. From here we learn from what had happened in the Honorable Rawda al-Sharifa. In this hadith, we took today, in this episode, even it was narrated once, but it is a hadith narrated from the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and a caliph and a companion of the Prophet, peace be upon him. He warned us to the first hadith of Al-Bukhari. Every one of us must realize the intention is a basic issue, and every time he decides to do something, he must put a true intention and a good intention, and to be honest with Allah, to be rewarded with good conclusion. Here, we know the meaning of the reward of deeds. Surely the reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and we ask Allah the Almighty to teach us, to ask Him in true intention, and good, and honest work. We seek from Allah the Almighty, and His Prophet, peace be upon him, in it. He is the leader for this nation. He is the one who taught the companions to ask Allah the Almighty in their prayers. And He taught them that whoever wanted to ask should ask Allah the Almighty. So He teaches us, peace be upon him, to this direction, how He is the generous Prophet and the great Messenger, repented to Allah between day and night more than 70 times, to approach Allah with good intentions and to reach the companions, to approach to Allah. And that is why this hadith, while discussing it in the gracefulness of Rawda, we learn from it that is faithful intention for Allah the Almighty. The reward of deeds depends upon the intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. And peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad and his kin and his companions.